Welcome to the Rise of She, the empowering podcast that celebrates the unstoppable force of women. I'm your host, Preeta Bolaki, and together we will shatter the glass ceilings, rewrite the rules, and reveal the extraordinary power within each and every woman. Join me as we redefine heroism, demanding the world to acknowledge that the word hero is just an O without her. Discover with me how women can unleash their internal potential, demand equitable pay that reflects their true worth, vanquish insecurities, conquer work-life balance, and embrace profoundly fulfilled lives. If you like my podcast, feel free to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook for an empowering journey like no other. Find me at Preeta Bolaki and let's ignite the fire within. Disclaimer. The primary purpose of this podcast is to provide education. Information provided in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any disease. Information given in this podcast must not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to as a basis for expert witness testimony or establishing standard of care in a legal sense. Trigger warning. Some experiences shared in the podcast may be triggering to some audience members. User discretion is advised. Hi, welcome to this inspiring episode of the Rise of She podcast. I'm your host, Preeta Bolaki, and today we are honored to have Kim Szeredi with us, a true force to be reckoned with. At 25, Kim's journey from battling anorexia in 2017 to becoming the proud owner of the Sea, Salt and Fitness Coaching is nothing short of remarkable. What makes Kim's stories even more inspiring in her journey with ADHD? Despite facing unique challenges, she turns her experience into a source of strength, proving that success knows no bounds. Kim's coaching style goes beyond the weights. It's about cultivating strong, healthy minds as much as bodies. With 6 years of coaching under her belt, she guides athletes prepping for powerlifting competition and empowers everyday gym fans to build a positive relationship with food and their bodies. What sets Kim apart is her holistic approach, rooted in self-compassion and education. As a certified facilitator of the ACFEB Body Project, she extends her influence beyond coaching to impact educational departments and communities, creating a ripple effect of empowerment. Get ready to join us as we explore Kim's transformative journey, a narrative where strength exceeds the physical and becomes a mindset. Uncover the wisdom she generously shares, inspiring others to embrace their distinctive path, especially those navigating ADHD. This podcast episode promises a rich blend of resilience, empowerment, and a generous dose of Kim's unique brand of work. It's a journey worth taking, filled with insight that resonates with any forging their own path to wellness. Welcome to the Rise of She podcast, Kim. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Preeta, for that enlightening introduction. I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Thank you. Kim, could you share some insight in your personal journey with ADHD?
Yeah, where do I start? I guess coming from an eating disorder background in 2017, but I would say even from the age of 10, 12, started dieting. ADHD or attention deficit hyperactive disorder, is basically the result of your brain having to alter its way of thinking in a very kind of reactive, fast state. So putting conclusions together very fast, adaptive mechanism that's done by the brain throughout childhood so that it can survive. Because our bodies are amazing at adapting for us to survive, but so is our brain. And so what happens is throughout the childhood years, if there are circumstances which tell the brain that it's unsafe or it's an emotional distance, maybe a caregiver, bullying in the schoolyard, whatever it may be, but it's impactful enough for your brain to develop those neurological pathways to be faster and a bit more reactive to things in life. So not so slow, but it's very fast things. We have a lot of thoughts coming in and out, right? But what that means is the way it shows up in our adulthood life can be a bit not detrimental, but inoptimal to our being, because it doesn't give us the greatest chance at maybe tackling things in the smartest way possible, tending to do, and that can lead to like burnout. That can lead to a lot of people, they ADHD like are late for things. They just have a lot on their brain. They're distracted easily because there are so many thoughts coming in and out. And how's it showed up, in your fitness journey? A lot of people with ADHD will experience going from diet to diet, trying to just fit in, follow the latest body image trends by doing whatever diets are coming in and out, whatever style of training, whether it be Pilates, HIIT classes, all those kinds of things, but kind of just going to an extreme because we're trying to get somewhere the fastest way possible, right? So what happens is that can show up in our professional, personal, spiritual lives, any element of our lives that requires a work ethic. So, for example, you've got an eating disorder history, which is very common with people with ADHD or have developed that. So there's some sort of trigger that makes you want to control some sort of form of your body. And that is to meet a body image standard that is placed in our society. So trying to be as small as possible, for example, or maybe these days, girls in the gym trying to be as lean as possible, muscular, but lean, like toned, so doing anything that you can to achieve that. But scientifically, it may not be the most optimal way. It's just the way that society has normalized it being the only way, going from diet to diet, going from like workout to workout. But the body at a physiological level doesn't work like that. So, for example, my coaching is about bringing girls to a grounded state and being able to educate them on not only their psychology, but also how to work smarter, not necessarily harder and faster, which is what their brain's wired to do. Right. So it is a bit of, it takes time and your body adapts to that, and you learn to trust in a process that is different from what you have originally perceived as optimal. So in terms of how it showed up in my life, well, my eating disorder, and I think that is heavily fueled by a parent in my life and like needing to meet some sort of demand, but at a subconscious level. So that shows up then in body image ideals, being small. We always saw like ads on TV when we were younger. Light and easy. I remember still like being like 12 and being like, I'm going to go on light and easy. And this expectation that we are meant to diet or meant to be just smaller, right? But it's not going to be necessarily healthy for someone who isn't that exact small, and it's going to rebound on them in some way, shape, or form, especially if you're trying to get it the fastest way possible. Yeah. So how it's shown up in my professional life, when I started my business, it was a lot of me going, I'm going to do everything I can to make this work. And therefore you kind of lose a passion for the process, and you also end up burning out. And it's the same with dieting. You start like the latest trend diet, and then a few days in, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. It's not worth it. So it's kind of like that, going all in to try and meet a demand or trying to meet this sort of standard that you really value. And then the process is kind of shit. And you just like, you're like, this is not worth it.
How did you manage that when you got to know that obviously you would like to focus more on your passion? And I know people with ADHD, sometimes they don't want to do some of the stuff as well, which they found boring. So you being in your business, how do you manage that? Because at the end of the day, you will have to handle everything, right?
Yeah, but I love everything, because at the end of the day, as long as I'm doing it in a way that isn't too much for me to handle. A lot of people with ADHD have businesses because we can't stand doing an admin job. They burn out. It's trial and error. It's literally just trial and error, because the people with the strongest level of resilience or have built up a bounce back, eventually, if someone's burnt out, if that's in their fitness life, if that's in their business, if that's in relationships, whatever it is, there has to be a point where you're like, oh, I have to do this another way. I have to get some help. But you have to come to that realization realization. So the first step is self-awareness, and then seeking help, like seeking some sort of level of support, because unless you have someone to ground you and to direct you, you're only going to revert back to what you know. And that is to just be like, oh, I'm going to try it all again. I'm going to go all in again. This time it'll work, but it doesn't, because your body doesn't work like that at physiological level and a neurological level, because you can't maintain something that isn't sustainable in terms of that work ethic that's really, really hard and affects other areas of your life. Like people who go all in on diets don't go to birthdays because they don't want to face the food, especially someone who takes it to an extreme and ends up in that eating disorder diagnosis, anorexia, binge eating, whatever it may be. At that point, they have probably distanced themselves from social events, have lost their sex drive, have lost their cycles, everything like that, and are just kind of wound up in it because it becomes a normal way of thinking. So then at that point, you kind of have to hit a rock bottom in order to realize that you need help and to slowly get your way out of there.
In 2017, how did you work it out? How did you realize, being aware that you need to work on you? Enough is enough.
Well, I hit a rock. Specific story. I went to Mount Buller in Victoria with my dad in 2017. I was in year 12, and at that point it was July, and I was in a state of eating as little as possible, feeling like I had eaten a lot and still feeling guilty for eating small amounts, feeling like I had to run to and from school with a heavy bag on my back, which was like 4.5 kilometers each way, and I managed to like have a record time like 24 minutes or something, and it was a constant like challenge, but it was so toxic because I just kept losing weight. But I was scared of food. I was crying because I didn't allow myself foods until a certain time. I was holding myself in bed, like, because I thought I had to exercise before eating every single day. So I went to 6:15 a.m. classes. I have a scar on my eyebrow because I ran out the door to go to a 6 a.m. class around the corner, because there's the Ashburton near my family home, and they hold the 6:15 a.m. class, and I hit the garage on my eyebrow, and then it was bleeding, but I didn't care. I went anyway, and the instructor was like, your eyebrow's bleeding. I was like, I don't care. I need to burn calories. And you get so in your head. It came to a point, I was at Mount Buller, and this instructor there, she had gone through a similar journey, but she could see in me that I just didn't look like I was happy. And because she'd been there, it was easier to resonate. And she sort of talked to me. And my dad had come to pick me up from the class, and I still wanted to do more exercise after, but I was just doing burpees in the corner or something. And then she was just like, you've just got to eat more food. Because I said to her, like, how did you get from that? Because she had her before and afters from when she was in her ED space to like now, when she was really shapely. She looked really good, healthy, but strong. And at the time, I think I was following more influencers on Instagram and stuff like that who were more of a shapely, who were doing the bulking, who were building muscle. And I think it appealed to me, but it was very wavering in the ground until like she had sort of spoken to, she sort of sparked it in me. And the next day I was back in Melbourne, and I went into the Lululemon change rooms, and I looked at my back because they have the mirrors all around, and I freaked out. It's almost like you build up this body dysmorphia, and it is like that because you become all consumed and you think that small is better, or leaner is better, whatever it may be. For a guy, more jacked is better, so they start using steroids and things like that when they get into that headspace. For me, I looked at my back, I started crying. I reached for these energy bounce balls in my bag, like these mini ones, and I was just scoffing them like in the change rooms, and I left there. I didn't buy the shirt, but I was determined. And I think I went to a body pump class the next week because it was more weights. It's a bit of cardio meets weights, but I saw the instructor and she looked really like toned and she had really good shape. And I sort of said to her, how did you get like that? Because I was really inspired, and she directed me to her coach. So I started with her coach the next week, and I think I was just asking him so many questions. I kind of felt bad because he was probably more advanced coach, but I was like, oh, how do you track this? Like, because he gave me macros and stuff like that. Hired my next coach who was in San Diego. So I did online coaching with her, and I was doing online coaching. It was so good. And I was like, I want to do what you do when I grow up. I was like 19. Yeah. And I always just sort of knew that I wanted to like get into that space. And that year I did my PT certs, so personal training certifications. And then the year after I went sports science at Deakin. So the development, my coaching journey started because I did bounce back out of it. And I knew that I wanted to help girls who had come from that place as well get that defined shape. Although So throughout the years, I started to become a bit more reliant on being shapely yet lean.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of expectation yet again. And I had to realize that along the way before I stopped tracking macros, stopped my last cut at the end of like 2022. A cut means just losing body fat from the amount of muscle you've gained in a bulk. And then I kind of was like, this is still consuming to meet these demands. But by that point, I had grown a significant amount of muscle, sort of filled out my frame. Yeah, I stopped tracking at the end of 2022. It was a lot healthier for my headspace because I haven't been consumed by the macros I'm having. I've just been settling into my Sedley point, which is what your body genetically is predisposed to looking like based on your bone frame, based on genetics. Like I have a Hungarian background, so naturally I'll settle into a curvier frame, but that's curvier by definition of society standards, right? But that's also because I'm in that fitness space. Like I'm in that normality of looking a certain way based on my social media, based on the people around me. So say, for example, if you go into like another region, another country, different shapes are normalized as well. So it's interesting because the development, I guess, of my coaching has mimicked the development of my mentality and image along the years. So now I'm a bit more focused on strengthening women. And yes, macros could always be an element as an educational standpoint, but it is better to settle into a way of eating for intuition, especially with someone who has that ADHD kind of like all in, all out diet type mentality. So now my coaching skill set is around helping women feel empowered around food, understand what their bodies need, and develop a healthier body image as a result of just focusing on strength building.
Yeah, thank you. How can you explain ADHD for those who may not be familiar? How did you know that you had to go and test for ADHD?
What happened is my friends started saying that I had ADHD. I didn't even know what it was until 2021 because I got diagnosed at the start of 2022. It was kind of a result of me having friends who were in the fitness space. I think it became more medically established by that point. So it was more recognized and therefore more people being diagnosed.
Yeah.
Because some people say it was overdiagnosed, but there's also that balance of being like, well, if it was more medically studied, then the psychiatrist had more information. And I'll explain exactly what ADHD is.
Yeah.
So attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So it's basically your brain being very hyperactive in that sense that you have a lot of thoughts coming in and out. But it also means your ability to have attention in the places where you logically like need it at that point in time can be quite minimized unless you're really passionate about doing. So the dopamine that you have is quite reduced in the person who has ADHD. So what happens is they have like dopamine, which is feel good, work, driving, neurological hormone, well, like that tells you you want to do this, because what people with ADHD happen is that we have like dopamine to the things that we really want to do in that moment. And so if it's higher than a task that is a little bit more mundane, we're going to get diverted our attention to that high stimulating task because we just want the dopamine from that at a psychological level. So what happens in the real world is that you're just like, oh, I need to do this, oh, I need to do that. And then you kind of have mixed thoughts going one out the other. And what happens, and it shows up in everyday life, you can be late to things, you can be like distracted easily. So if you're talking to someone and you go all like headspacey because you're trying to think of something else that you had to do earlier in the day, and or it's hard to leave the house because you're like, oh, I have to do this washing, I have to do this, and you just want to get those things out of the way really fast. It can show up in any area of life. So I'm holding a mastermind for my girls at the moment, which is overviews everything I've learned in the past 6 years. So the first one was all on like the self-awareness side of things. So even the way you show up in the gym, so slowing down in order to speed up, slowing down the movements to have more intention with pulling as much slack out of the bar on your deadlifts as possible, for example, in order to make sure that rep to rep, you're balancing well enough to be able to execute in a really balanced way and therefore have the most strength so that the heaviest weights feel the lightest. For example, I can pretty much pick it up really easily. When I got diagnosed, I didn't really think anything of it. I'm just like, it doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to take my medication because it's my personality. I've taken it this morning in order to be on this call because I knew that like I would need to remember exactly what question you asked me in the start, rather than going completely off. Anyway, so I think it also, you can see it in people who change conversations really easily and quickly.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your brain just is like ticking all the time. It's become normality for you to think a certain way. So they say like, you know, you should only like have medication if it's negatively impacting your life. But if it's been impacting your life your whole life, you don't know any different. So unless you take the medication, you won't actually actually know what it's like to think really clearly and really grounded. For example, doing an essay for uni or something like that is going to be way easier having like medication that helps calm your brain and actually gives you that level of dopamine you need to be able to perform the task and actually have the ability to want in a way to perform the task, because otherwise it's just like you're going to get distracted. You're going to find something else.
My next question was to ask you, how do you navigate your daily routine when managing ADHD? But I guess, like you said, it's normal to you. It doesn't make any difference in your life.
I just work with it because of the way that I am self-employed. I obviously am able to run my own shop, but in that way, I kind of find whatever path is the highest level of dopamine inducing for me. So everything I do is a passion project, because otherwise it would be very hard. But the thing is, I have to do admin tasks, obviously, in order to run my business, because it's a collective of a lot of things. It's marketing, it's attending to my clients on every day, which is really exciting to me. It's doing things like this, which I don't even like consider these kind of things like a job, but it's anything you want to make it. I'm making posts and I'm like, the outcome of this is really impactful. Like, of course, like I really want to do this. Plus it relates back to my journey, my resonation. So in terms of how I structure my day, I wouldn't say I have a one set structure for every day. I work in with what sessions my clients can do for their in-person sessions. If I know that a task needs to be completed, like I'm doing programming for a client, so they use my app, System Fitness app, and I do their programming on there. If I know what program's due for them, of course, this is something that needs to be done. Getting back to clients over messages, they send me videos, I give them feedback, but that's all stuff that I really love to do. So I wouldn't say I have a set in stone routine, but a lot of my days start with checking my emails, checking my client messages, knowing exactly like I need to program a certain thing. And then from there, I can do the tasks that are a bit more non-negotiable, like setting up my next post for the next few days. I kind of learnt this stuff over time. It's not something that's happened instantly, because when I started my business, I was just all over the shop, just making stories every day and hoping for the best. But it has to be more logical about that, because at some point you hit a wall and it's kind of not going to work, because you're kind of just working harder without it being like an activity that actually will generate the outcomes that you want. So at that point, I actually hired my business coach last year, Arden Schiller, on Instagram. She's amazing, but she comes from a similar background where she burnt out in her fitness business. And now primarily she's helping people who are needing to just live a bit more, rather than always living for your business, always trying to make yourself feel validated and worthy from doing that. But what happens when the outcome's not what you expect? Then you feel shit. It's about learning that that's okay. For example, if you apply this to the fitness world, if you're a vegan, if you try paleo, if you're a vegetarian, whatever it might be, some people, if they let it be their identities and say like they go off track, or they're like, oh, I'm keto now, or whatever, and they go off track, and they're going to feel shit because it no longer sits with the identity that they place on themselves. If you're really into the gym and you start getting into the gym and you're trying all these diets and everything like that, then you're kind of placing yourself in this expectation on yourself that you've got to uphold this level. So what happens when your body kind of rebounds like at a physiological level, and you've kind of done so much and your body rebounds, then you like feel really shit because you place these expectations on yourself and then you're not meeting them. So you don't feel like this sense of worthiness in yourself, because you're like, you feel so defeated, like you're a failure, everything like that. So
Then sabotage yourself.
yeah, and I think like self-sabotage, the word in itself, kind of like, so if you're following the way that you've only ever known and you're feeling kind of shit in that, I'd say like the easiest way to navigate if you're kind of self-sabotaging is if you're running into walls and it's making you feel guilty, shit, powerless, I would say not confident in yourself as well. Then that's kind of saying that the way that you're going about things doesn't work with your body, it doesn't work with your mind long term, and there has to be another way. And that is where getting guidance from someone who resonates with you is so important.
How do you manage that on your side? How do you do that?
I have a powerlifting coach, I have a business coach, and then throughout the years, it's sort of built up on my skill sets to be able to manage, be able to learn, create some sort of level of resilience, but also learn along the way and trust. Because I've had coaches throughout so many years. Like I had Kendall from 2018 when I came out of my eating disorder to 2020. And then I had Jade, who was at a local gym. So I was doing more in-person and online till 2020. And the in-person proved very valuable. And that's why I implement in-person and online. But I love online. Online is puts everything together for me. And then after that, I started powerlifting. So powerlifting kind of came out of the blue. And also I've studied sports science. I've studied, my PT said sports science, but nothing beats real life experience. And the thing is, throughout the years, I've just learned what my body and what a lot of people's bodies can sustain and handle, especially coming from someone who has been that all in, all out, just being hard on themselves without realizing that there is a smarter way to work. A smart being like it actually produces the results long-term that you desire. And you don't know what you don't know and don't know what you haven't felt yet is what I always say. The way that I know now is because I've had all that trial and error experience. I've had all that coaching experience to bring me where I am now. There's probably still things I don't know or haven't experienced yet, but I'm doing what I can. And I think I built a very solid foundation on that as well.
I'm happy you sharing that. I've come to that question. As you know, I had my Kick-Ass Buddy coaching, and Kick-Ass Buddy is very important because I believe that everyone needs someone in their corner. You said that how many coaches you had along the way to help you to succeed from where you are now. So if I ask you, who has been your Kick-Ass Buddy throughout your journey and who has been your supporting network?
Not just one person, probably my dad.
Yeah.
I had to say, because throughout my whole life, my business life, he's also quite entrepreneurial minded. He's supported me in a way that I don't think has been the same as how everyone else has, you know, objectively supported me. My coaches have supported me. They've taught me skills. They've helped me to gain a trust in my body, helped me to understand how I'm actually going to elicit pure strength, physique outcomes, whatever it may be. But in terms of the drive and the resilience and just being able to bounce back and tap into that entrepreneurial go-getter attitude, I don't think without what my dad has displayed to me through his actions, because he's a go-getter, he's very bubbly, enthusiastic attitude. So he's in the networking world, so he introduced me to that world. And I think without that, I wouldn't be able to be so positive and resilient towards being able to implement everything my coaches have given me and everything like that. So I think that is huge. And that's something that a lot of people process in terms of their upbringing and the way that their parents displayed attitude towards life and things that they throw at you. There can always be like the people in your life as you grew up. But in a typical person, their parents are going to be like the people throughout their childhood, their teenage years, when your brain's developing. Yeah, I definitely say him. It's not like he's in the gym with me. It's not like he knows anything really about the gym world and nutrition, doesn't know that side of things, but the attitudes that he's displayed me to then carry on into that field of growth is definitely massive.
That's wonderful. I think the last time we spoke, I could feel when you were talking about ADHD and how comfortable you were with it and how you were telling me that it's normal to have the medication. This is what I love about you, is like, it's a very good example of how you embrace life despite having this challenge. And it's not even a challenge for you, because when talking to you, I was so inspired by you when you were talking about that. This is what happened. This is how my brain is. And you talk about it so comfortably and telling the person, like, you know, if I go out of track, that's normal, you know. And I just love the way you were talking to me and talking about it. And I think this will really help people, not only people having ADHD, but people having other challenges in that. And you're a very good example of showing that despite having this, get support, have your Kick-Ass Buddy, and have the coaches that can help you to be best version of yourself. And I really believe in coaching, because I believe that coaches do bring the best version of ourselves, because like you said, we know what we know, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, especially coaches who are working on themselves actively. I will say that I think ADHD is a superpower. I think it is something that teaches people a lot about themselves, because ultimately you go through a lot of challenges and the way that you bounce back out of them is everything. So I think a lot of people get stuck in this headspace, and I just can't really relate to it because I've never viewed it as a bad thing. I mean, sometimes really frustrating if I'm getting into this analysis paralysis state. And I had this point last week, even I was trying to do work and I had my whiteboard, because just a tip, I bought a whiteboard from Kmart, because if I go into my notes app app on my phone to type in a to-do list, I might forget it by the time I get into my to-do list. So I just have it like right. And there was just an overload of like things to do that I could be doing right now. It teaches you so much. And the level of resilience that you bounce back out of that actually makes you a strong. In my eyes, I've always thought, treat the world like it's your oyster. It's about having these experiences, being able to bounce back out of that. And you actually view life more positive. And some people who don't have ADHD may not get over that hump because they may be people who just work a 9 to 5 and they've kind of grown up to have a very structured way of living, and people same shit, different day. And I can't stand those.
I think that's because you've been having coaches who has been always there to push you. Even me, now it's 6-7 years I've been having coaches. So it's really push you to do other things out of your comfort zone. So for other people, it's look like a big jump, but for us, it's like, okay, we have someone here. It's like last week, my business coach, we always have 3 main tasks that we have to do for the weeks. And on Friday, I'm supposed to report to him. And when reporting to him, I was like, it was a big week. I couldn't complain. So I was procrastinating a bit. And he managed to find ways to get me back. And I was so motivated, that on that day, I tried to complete everything. And I was sitting there and thinking that that's what we need in life. Because if I didn't have that person, I would have maybe still trying to do it this week. But the fact that he was like, it's okay, just do small one. What can you do? And that really helped me and in completing it the weekend. So I think that's very important because we are used to that. And when we see other people that still just saying what they want to do and never push and always trying to find some excuse, or I don't have money, or I don't have this, or I can't do that, I don't have time, then you're like, if you really push, you will have time, you will have money. And I think that's why you see the difference.
Yeah, well, it needs to become enough of a priority that the work required to do it is less than the outcome. So you need to keep the passion there in the work ethic, and you can only keep the passion there if you have a sense of clarity around what you're doing and you feel really supported and confident in that. So having coaches definitely speed up the time of 1000% because there's no really end goal. And I think a lot of people have this idea that there's an end goal. So
that's why I talk about the outcome and the goal. There's a big difference because we work every day for outcome, and this is what we should enjoy instead of having the goal.
Yeah,
you rightly say.
And the goal's malleable. The goal's forever changing. Like outcomes that I want to achieve is to get into the public speaking space. So I might be talking at schools this year under and you said earlier, Australian College of Eating Behaviour, which is a association with the government that I'm a facilitator with. So I went to Brisbane, and it is a project that helps people to develop a healthier sense of self with their body image. And what coaching does is speed up the process for people to be able to understand and become clear and grounded of exactly what they need in order to achieve those outcomes day to day and love the process. When you love the process, then the outcomes are just you feeling good in the process.
Yes, so true. What would be the one piece of wisdom or advice you would give to women navigating in the personal or professional challenges?
I think being able to show up with resilience in a way that honors your health, happiness, and longevity is a great strength and quality you can show to the world. So being able to understand how to work smarter and not harder is the core foundation of living harmoniously with yourself. Just having resilience and not viewing setbacks as setbacks, but setbacks as the start of a comeback. Have curiosity around coaching and curiosity around getting some other form of advice from someone who can resonate with where you've been. Yeah. Because if you look up to someone who has been where you've been, but is now where you want to be or the direction you want to be in, then those are the people to tap into 1000%. And that allows you to create your own resilience in that avenue.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your stories. And I'm sure these have helped a lot of people and have helped me as well to understand we all have challenges and we will always, that's part of the life, but how to handle it, your story really, really helps.
Of course, Frida.
We will also have your social media link if anyone wants to connect with you.
All right. Thanks so much, Frida.
Thank you everyone listening and see you in the next episode.
If you have been inspired by today's episode, make sure to subscribe and follow The Rise of She to stay connected and never miss a moment of empowerment. Join me on Instagram and Facebook, where we'll continue to fuel the flames of progress and self-improvement together. Find me at Prita Velaki. Remember, We are unstoppable forces bound to inspire and empower one another. Until next time, Prita says adios, ladies. Stay tuned for our next empowering encounter.